there is a pathway to making money and profitability. Now, it may not be the same level of profit that some of these billionaires have gotten used to, but I think it's such a good point. On some level, what are you trying to do? Do you want the country to be a better place, or do you want to make a little bit more money in a private equity fund than you might make by building your own media company? I know you were concerned about Brian Stelter, the CNN reliable sources, fired, left-wing zealot. This will be the guy who's not going to call out anything going on at the border. And I saw this, and I just thought to myself, this is too perfect for this to be the result of Brian Stelter being fired at CNN. He's now got his next job lined up. This is not a joke. I sound like Joe Biden. He has joined Harvard University, where he will be teaching courses focused on threats against democracy. He has been named the Walter Shorenstein Media and Democracy Fellow. Harvard says it wants Stelter to convene discussions about the fate of democracy and the state of the news media. These discussions with media leaders, policymakers, politicians, I'm reading from their release, and Kennedy School students, fellows, and faculty will help deepen public and scholarly understanding about the current state of the information ecosystem and its impacts on democratic governance. So, several $100,000 for Harvard. Do you think either one of us will get invited to sit on any of these panels?
I don't think so. And you think it's interesting.
Maybe I've just missed my invitation. Maybe it's out there.
Stelter is a failed CNN TV show host who went to Towson and has a BA. I went to Amherst. You went to GW and then got a JD at Vanderbilt. I don't think either of us. I spent 5 years at the CIA. I don't think either of us are going to get invited to teach any courses at Harvard, Clay. It's just so shocking, isn't it? What I think is funny here, this is all exactly, I say this all the time. I don't mean to get all serious here. We'll make fun of Brian Stelter again in a second. The left takes care of their people all the time. It is so true. That's why Stelter can go on TV every night. I'm so tired. I'm so scared of our democracy. Be like a sweaty mess with no ratings. It doesn't matter because the apparatus will make sure that even if his show crashes and burns, Clay, they're going to pay him $250,000 to teach this class, I bet you. It's Harvard. They got $40 billion to pay him whatever they want. Like, here I am, a threat to our democracy. And, I know Cartman and Stelter sound kind of similar, but, Cartman is way funnier than Stelter. But here's what the left does. They take care of the people on their side who do their bidding, and that means that they'll get people who will just run through that plate glass window of lunacy and they don't worry about what's on the other side because they know the book deals, the board seats. On our side, it's always, maybe you'll start a small business or, after your career has been shattered because cancel culture has come for you. We're not good at this.
Yeah, I agree. And this is one of those things where I think the billionaires who are making decisions about what to do, I did it. Look, I went out and founded a media company and sold it to Fox. But I think there needs to be more money being spent in media, frankly. I know Fox does a good job out there, but there are still very few real, strong, actually landing punches media companies out there, right? You know what I'm talking about?
I've talked to a couple of,
I know there's,
yeah, absolutely. I've talked to conservative billionaires, a couple of them at different times, off the record, so I won't name them. But I've talked to them and said, "Can you look? Let's build a serious, even just a free speech based conservative leaning. It doesn't have to be as right wing as I would want it to be, but just something out there." And the attitude of people on the right who make a lot of money, overwhelmingly, not everybody, but overwhelmingly is, I don't know if that business is scalable. I don't know if that's really going to have the profit margin. And I want to look at them and say, it's about saving the country. It's you're rich enough.
Rich.
It's about saving, because their billionaires do this. And I remember I had a long text thread in 2020, and Rush read the whole thing on air. It was about exactly this issue.
Yep.
Because I said, if you're a billionaire who wants to save America, stop sending, a $10 million to the ballet and $2 million to a think tank that writes papers nobody reads. Start a media entity. Glenn Beck started the Blaze years ago. Clay, I give Glenn a lot of props, a lot of credit for this. You see the people that came through there. I came through there. Will Kane, Pete Hegseth,
A lot of ecosystems.
Jedediah Bila, Guy Benson, Katie Pavlich. Tons of people got trained up at the early stages Blaze. Obviously, you're doing this for sports and sane sports with Outkick, but this is the way.
Yeah, look, it's 100% right. And, Buck, by the end of football season, Outkick is going to be one of the 3 or 4 biggest sports sites on the internet. So, by the way, if you're out there and you're a sports fan, you want some sanity, you can check out Outkick. But there is a pathway to making money and profitability. Now, it may not be the same level of profit that some of these billionaires have gotten used to, but I think it's such a good point. On some level, what are you trying to do? Do you want the country to be a better place, or do you want to make a little bit more money in a private equity fund than you might make by building your own media company? And without Rupert Murdoch, think about this for a minute, Buck. Without Rupert Murdoch, effectively, there would be no real marketplace of ideas in American media right now. We've been talking, Buck, about how CNN has been rapidly trying to pivot back towards the middle. They fired our great friend Brian Stelter, who now has got a job at Harvard to talk about threats to democracy. That's not hyperbole or satire. That's real. Harvard University is now going to pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars to lecture students about how Republicans are a threat to democracy. And the media at CNN and many other places jumped all over. We got a monster audience listening to us in Utah. Thanks to everybody out there listening in Salt Lake and beyond. And in Provo, Utah, there was an allegation. We covered it on this show, one of the few places that would actually cover the truth, that a BYU volleyball player had a racial slur hurled at her during a match. A Duke volleyball player playing against BYU. The media immediately condemned not only BYU, all of their students, all of their alums, everyone, frankly, they were trying to tie together in the Mormon faith. All of it came under siege because of this allegation. It now appears it was Jussie Smollett on a volleyball court. And CNN actually, Buck, had a contributor go on the air and call out all the media that got it wrong and point out, hey, there was a rush to judgment here. There's nothing to support that this actually happened. Listen.
Healthy skepticism is always a virtue, but this doesn't read like a cover-up. Instead, it feels like there was a rush to judgment because of a well-intentioned impulse to believe the Duke player's accusations. Now, we need to note that the investigation does not call Rachel Richardson a liar or a fabricator. It leaves open the possibility that she sincerely believed that she heard repeated racial heckling and that some sort of misunderstanding occurred. But when investigations turn up a very different fact pattern, it's incumbent upon everyone to acknowledge it and adjust. Fidelity to the facts is all that we as journalists and citizens should ask. It's understandable that there's a desire to believe people when they say they've been victimized. But the accusations have to be backed up by facts. And when the facts don't fit, upon further review, we need to set the record straight with as much intensity as the initial reports.
We've seen quite a change here, Mr. Right-wing
Can you believe that was CNN?
Travis. Yes.
Can you believe that? They called me a right-wing extremist for basically saying everything that CNN just finally got around to.
I also think it's funny to watch CNN try to start to be a news organization again because their jobs are all on the line. So this guy, John Avlon there is saying, and what he's saying about, well, yes, it is possible, but there are facts. What you see is the people at CNN are capable of living in reality. They're capable of analyzing things, but for a long time, they have been catering because of ideology to people who just want to hear stuff. I mean, to your point about Hunter Biden and the laptop, that is clearly the fact that 40% of people still believe it is misinformation. That is clearly a function of the steady diet of lies they have been fed by the Democrat-aligned corporate media, such that it doesn't even, The correction never penetrates. This is the classic thing you see on. So, by the way, did I jump ahead? Did you not?
I think you and I talked about that.
I'm sorry. I thought,
but yes, this is for everybody out there. Buck just hit it. There's a study out. What percentage of people still believe that the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation? 41% of the American public, including half of Democrats and roughly half of independent voters, and even, I believe, 27% of Republicans, still believe the big tech lie, the collusion with the Democrat Party, that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation and not real. That's a staggering percentage. 41% of the American public doesn't know. And given all the fact checking that the big tech companies go on, wouldn't this be a direct threat to democracy that huge percentages of the American population still aren't aware of the truth of the Hunter Biden laptop?
You would think so. And yet, I mean, how many people, Clay, if you looked at it back in, I think it was even 2018, believed that Russia, this was another one of these moments, Russia changed vote totals in voting machines. It was a very high number if you go back among Democrats.
In 2016.
And look at the polling.
Yeah.
2016 through 2018 was the last time I saw polls. They still believed it deep into the Trump
even
presidency.
2 years later.
Because a lot of the time what everyone has to recognize is people believe what they want to believe, right? And when they've been told something that is as affirming for their whole view of Donald Trump is evil and he's horrible, and see, the Russians even changed vote totals. There was never any basis in evidence for this. I think it's interesting that even in going back to the BYU volleyball allegation, you notice the media in recent years did this. Somebody said something without evidence, and then they keep going. The BYU player here made an allegation that is to this day without evidence. So
the Duke player.
I'm sorry, the Duke player. The same. The Duke player against BYU made the same. Made an allegation without evidence. In 2018, speaking of which, remember on the Kavanaugh situation, the line was, "Women are to be believed. Believe all women." We actually had a moment here where, in order to achieve a desired political outcome, in that case for a Supreme Court seat, it turned into evidence-free allegation must be believed. True Soviet-style resolution of the situation. That was what they wanted.
And, Buck, think about this Duke volleyball player. Either best case scenario for her, she mistakenly believed she was being called a racial slur during a volleyball match. Why would she believe that? Because she has bought into the idea that America is a fundamentally racist place, and so she just expects that a white crowd is going to be screaming racial slurs at her during a match, and nobody's going to do anything. That's the best case scenario for her. Worst case scenario here, she is a direct liar who made up this entire story. There's zero evidence for it. Duke, if they were an institution that cared about truth, would actually conduct an investigation here, because if they determine that she made up this lie, she should be kicked out of Duke and not allowed to attend the school anymore, because it would be a violation of the student code. They will not do that, though, Buck. Because she is a black woman, they will not treat her to the same standard that they would hold a white guy. And we know this because, based on allegations, Buck, they shut down the entire lacrosse program and then evidently had to pay tens of millions of dollars in damages. But you would think of all institutions out there, Duke would be the most skeptical of initial stories and say, wait,
oh, no.
This is an allegation. Let's actually investigate. But when a black woman says it, it has to be true because she's a victim and black women would never lie.
No, Clay, because remember, you're doing the whole law school brain, rational evidentiary approach. No, sir. Duke University, even in being massively wrong with the Duke lacrosse case, served the critical purpose of raising awareness about the existence of racism in our society. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't matter
That's
how
how they
wrong
always
they
pivot.
are. Doesn't
Yes.
matter whose lives they destroy in the process. They're always the heroes in this narrative because of systemic and institutional racism. It's funny how that works out for them.
It is ridiculous, but you're right. That's the pivot that they'll always make. But I do give credit where credit is due to CNN for actually pointing out the truth here. Maybe CNN, according to USA Today, also filled with right-wing extremists.
Yeah, very much so. We'll see.